lifestyle. Today it's going to be really simple. Today we're going to talk about how do you identify the events that pay speakers, and more importantly, who do you know to follow up with? Because I was talking with Talay. Talay's a Speak Pro member, and he was here the other day, like last week. And so we were talking about just following up, and it comes down to, do you know who to follow up with, and do you know how to follow up, and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, you're not going to follow up with two different events the same way. And the reason is because one event may want you more than the other event. And so you have to learn how to identify the events that pay as fast as possible. So that's what I want to talk about real quick. We're going to see who's hopping on. And if you guys have any questions, make sure you ask any questions. What's up, Maggie? What's up, Nick? What's up, peeps? So once again, it's all about how do you identify the right events, because like I said, the other day, Talay was here and we were talking about just following up. And he's like, at a certain point, what's going to happen to you is you're going to contact so many events, and then you're going to have all these follow-up tasks, right? And I remember Dave from the program, Dave mentioned that too. He's like, dang, I'm getting boggled down in all these follow-up tasks, right? So you have to learn how to identify which events to follow up with, which events to essentially ignore, and maybe come back, I don't know, 2 months later or something like that, right? And I remember a long time ago when I was just sending out minimum 100 emails a day, and I was getting so many replies. At the time, I didn't really think about who to really follow up with or how long. I was just nonstop, right? There was no strategy behind what I was doing. And eventually it got to a point where I had to, it got to a point where I naturally did it to where I knew who to follow up with and who to ignore. And nowadays, I just got more strategic with it. Nowadays, you just need to know exactly who to follow up with and who to ignore. Because like I said, you don't want to follow up with everyone the same way. You're not trying to follow up with each and every event the same way. It's like if you're talking to two different people and one person's like, yeah, I'd love to go have lunch with you. And another person's like, get out of my face. You're not going to follow up with them the same way, right? So the same goes with the events. It's like one event says, yeah, we'll keep your information. Another event says, take us off your list, damn it, right? So you're not going to follow up with them the same way. And so this just comes down to the lead score. I talked about this before, but you guys have to make sure you're really, really doing this nonstop with your lead score. Whenever you're talking to event, you have to keep check marking off that lead score inside of your CRM. What's up, Bill? What's up, Sherry? What's up, Assad? What's up, Blake? All right. So you guys got to make sure that you're doing that 24/7 in terms of the lead score. Let me see if I can get this thing to load on the iPad. I don't know what's up with Facebook. The thing's not working on my iPad anymore. All right. So basically, you want to think in terms of you're not trying to spend equal amount of time with your leads. And by the way, guys, if you have any questions, make sure you ask the questions now. Then I'll come back to them after I'm done with this, right? So if you have any questions, make sure you ask. But you just don't want to spend equal time with each and every lead that you're contacting. I do this all the time nowadays. We're sitting there, we're contacting events. We're contacting companies to do workshops and to sell these programs to these companies. And so I'm not following up with each and every company the same way. We're identifying a lead score with these companies, and then we're check marking these lead scores. We're creating a lead score. That way I know I'm going to follow up with these guys more often. I'm not going to follow up with these guys at all, or maybe I'll follow up with them six months from now. So that's pretty much what I'm doing, because literally if you contact enough events, it will happen. You will get so many replies. You will literally be boggled down in the follow-ups that you cannot spend equal amount of time on each and every event that you're talking to. It's just impossible. So you have to learn how to identify which events are going to pay you, which events you need to spend time with, all that sort of stuff. It's like when I was doing the phone calls, right? So I was doing the phone calls, and in the beginning, I didn't really have a process for the phone calls. I was just like, all right, let me just call, right? And so I was just calling with people, and I'm sitting there talking to them on the phone, and immediately I identified a really, really bad lead score, or not a bad lead score, but a negative quality in the lead score. And the negative quality was the fact that, were they sitting down or not? That was literally one of the lead scores when we started creating this for the phone, because I realized that every single person, 100% of the people that we talked to who weren't actually sitting down at a computer or taking notes, whatever, 100% did not buy. The reason is because they did not put any attention on the phone call. It was not important to them. So they weren't actually sitting down, taking notes. And by the way, this phone call, let me back up a little bit in terms of what the phone call was. The phone call is basically, hey, we're going to help you with your marketing. We're going to build out the plan for you. And then all you have to do is just implement this plan. If you want to join the program, you can. So that was the basics of the call. So we're sitting there, we're calling, we're talking, right? And I'm thinking like every single time I would, at first I didn't ask it, right? At first I didn't know what I was doing. At first I was just building out a plan, right? But then I noticed, okay, this person doesn't really sound interested in any way whatsoever. So I started asking people like, all right, are you at your computer? Because I want to show you something real quick. So some of the people said, no, I'm not at my computer. I don't know, grabbing groceries or something like that. And so people would literally say that as I'm talking to them on the phone. And I'm thinking like, someone who's actually interested, someone who really wants this marketing plan built out for them, they wouldn't sit there and have this conversation, or they wouldn't have this conversation at a grocery store, just walking around or whatever. They would literally be sitting down, probably at their computer. They'd be sitting down, taking notes. They wouldn't be just walking around, right? So I said, okay, this may be a potential lead score at this moment. This may be like a negative lead score. If they're not sitting down, actually taking notes at a computer, it's going to be a negative lead score for them. And so as I talk with more and more people, I realized 100% of the time, the people who weren't sitting down, who weren't at their computer, did not buy. So at that point, I said, okay, I mean, it literally got to a point where it's such a negative lead score that if they're not sitting down, like if they're walking around or whatever, trying to have this conversation, I literally hang up on them. I don't mean like, hey, how's it going? Are you sitting down? No. Okay, thanks. That's not what I do. What I do is I essentially say, okay, are you sitting down at your computer? I want to show you something. They say, oh, no, I'm not. I say, okay, well, what are you doing? Oh, well, I'm at a grocery store or something. I got my kids. I'm playing with the kids or whatever. I say, okay, well, let's schedule this call another time because you have to be at a computer. So, all right, just hit me up, schedule another time. Literally, that's what I do. And I just get off the phone as fast as possible because it's a negative lead score. The same goes with all the events that you're doing. Everything you're doing, you're sitting there, what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out who do I talk to and who do I ignore. That's ultimately what you're trying to do. And remember in the beginning, I talked about the whole contacting is the finding, right? So a lot of speakers say, how do I find events? How do I find more events? Or more importantly, how do I find events that pay? The problem is you don't know. There's no possible way to know an event pays you or not until you contact them. You literally have to send them an email, make a phone call. You have to contact them. Also understand that just because an event does pay, it does not mean they will pay you. So events, of course, they can pay speakers. And I realized this a long time ago when I was actually recommending a friend of mine when I was just doing entertainment. I would recommend a friend of mine when I was booked for a show and they contact me for the same day. I'm booked up. So I'm saying, all right, can't do it, but here, contact this guy. He's great. He's pretty much the only other guy that I recommend, right? I'm talking him up big time. Very rarely do they contact him. And so it was mostly because they wanted me. They didn't just want another entertainer, but still it comes down to just because they hired an entertainer, it doesn't mean they're going to hire you or hire a speaker. It doesn't mean they're going to hire you specifically. And so that's why you contact in order to find the ones who will hire you specifically. The problem is when you contact enough. So in order to get hired, you have to contact an insane amount of events, especially in the beginning. You contact tons of events, which means you're going to have tons of conversations, which also means you have to figure out who to filter out, who to talk to, who to ignore. And so you have to truly, truly understand your lead score and just do that 24/7 pretty much. What you're doing with your lead score is you're going into your CRM. So you get your lead score set up. And by the way, guys, let's do this real quick. So for those of you guys with the lead score, if you guys go to Event Finder here and then you go to, let's let this thing load real quick. It's over on the side part. So if you scroll down through all that training and then here on the right side, you click on lead score. There's your lead score right now, or right there. So all you guys got to do is take this lead score, put it into your CRM, bam, you have an instant lead score, right? So the resources are there. If you're not a Speak Pro member, you got to create your own lead score. But basically, what you're doing with the lead score is you have the lead score in place, and then you're contacting tons of events. At this moment, you filter in your CRM. You say, all right, I only want to talk to events with 300 plus people, events that I'm trying to remember the lead scores off the top of my head, events that want me as a speaker. So you filter out these lead scores and you say, today I'm going to contact these leads. So that's what you're ultimately doing. You're using your CRM to filter through all this stuff. That way you can just actually contact the people who are more likely to close first and then leave everyone last. That's literally what I do. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you guys who are using the CRM, that makes sense to you. Because literally, imagine this. All you're literally doing, you have the lead score. As you're talking to the event, you're check marking off that lead score inside of your CRM, right? So I'm talking to events. I realize this event has 300 plus people. This event is an annual event for the employees. This event, they wanted me for sure. This event. And so I'm check marking all these lead score statuses inside CRM as I'm like talking to the events, as I'm looking through. Then tomorrow, let's say I wake up tomorrow and I'm thinking, okay, which leads do I want to contact first? What I do is I check mark the most important parts of the lead score. So it filters that out inside the CRM and it says, all right, these are the 50 events you want to contact. So bam, I got 50 events I'm going to contact first. And then after that, I check mark the different lead scores. Bam, I got another series of events that I'm going to contact next. That's what I'm doing. You don't want to treat every single lead the exact same way. Because if you do, it's just going to take you longer to get booked. You have to master the ability to figure out which events are going to hire you as fast as possible. That's what you're ultimately trying to do. There's an entertainer here in Vegas, a friend of mine, Shakuma, and he was saying like he actually got to a point where he doesn't really follow up too much with too many events anymore. He just contacts them and then that's kind of it, because what he's doing is he's basically trying to figure out, well, he's basically letting them filter themselves. So he sends out that initial part and then that's it. He doesn't really follow up anymore just because it's like, hey, you interested? You're not? Hit me up type thing, right? So it's really simple, and it's one of the things that I've got to as well. I still follow up, but I don't follow up as much anymore just because it's one of those things where in the beginning you have to contact a lot of events. You have to follow up a lot because you need it more. Eventually you get to a point where you have so many that you are truly selective at this point. In the beginning, you cannot be selective. In the beginning, you just contact everybody and anybody. I mean, you're just like, man, all right, let me just contact you. Let me contact you. You just contact everybody. Eventually, you're going to get to a point where you have so many conversations, you absolutely positively cannot talk to everybody. So you have to be extremely selective. So all you're doing in your lead scores, you create that lead score, you filter through the CRM to figure out which events are more likely to close, which events are more likely to pay you, and then you contact them first, and then you leave everybody else second. Some of them you just don't even contact at all. Like, remember the lead score with the phone call? So if I know that they're not sitting down at the computer, I'm not going to follow up with them ever. Like, literally never. I'm going to say, all right, this person wasn't sitting down. I will never follow up with them. Absolutely never, because they didn't take that one call seriously, meaning they don't take me seriously, meaning there's absolutely no reason to talk to them in any sort of way. So that's how you really want to think about it. And with the lead score, when you filter this out, by the way, so you say, all right, inside of your CRM, let's do this. Hold on, let me go to these leads. Maybe I'll filter some out real quick so I can show you guys. Forget it. It's taking too long. Basically, all right. So imagine you go into your CRM, you filter that out, right? Once you filter that out, you're sitting there, you're creating follow-up tasks with each one of those leads each one of the leads that are more likely to hire you, each one of the events. So you filtered it. You said 300 plus people, annual event. They came to me. You filter those three out. And then you set a follow-up date for each and every one of those. So you're putting them through a certain sales cadence in a way, right? So that's ultimately what you're doing. Just understand that the lead score, by the way, in case you don't know what the lead score is, I've been talking about this whole lead score thing. In case you don't know what a lead score is simply a series of qualities of an event that's more likely to hire you. So when you contact events, what's going to happen is you'll naturally see these events are more likely to hire me. These events are more likely not to hire me. And so what you have to do is you have to figure out the difference between the two. So that's basically what a lead score is. You need to get to a point where you want to contact so many events, you have to create a lead score. If you do not have a lead score, or you are currently not using a lead score, you are not contacting enough people. It's like Dave Davlin inside the Speak Pro Academy, right? So Dave got to a point where, I mean, in case you guys didn't know, I mean, I told you he did like almost $250,000 the first year. What happened was Dave contacted so many people. He literally posted inside the group, hey, I'm getting so many follow-up tasks. What do I do? Like I'm setting follow-up tasks for each and every event. Like, what do I do? Like, I'm getting so much, I'm talking to so many people. What do I do? Right? That is the level of problem you need to have. It's very similar to someone paying taxes, right? It's like, look, man, I am paying so much in taxes. What do I do? That is a good problem to have. If you are paying money in taxes, that means you are making enough. You're making more than most people, right? Basically, if you are getting money back from the government in taxes, you're not making enough. That's literally what that means. And so the same goes with the lead score. You got to think in terms of if you're not getting enough people talking to you to a point where you have to create a lead score, you're not talking to enough people. You're not talking to enough events. So you have to get to a point where, like Dave, you're simply saying like, dude, I'm talking to so many people. What do I do about this thing? I'm getting so many follow-up tasks, so many conversations. What do I do? When people respond to me saying things, like certain responses will get a certain lead score from me. So I look at the responses and I will actually check mark a response as one of the lead scores. And these people will either get a template-based response or a customized response or a no response whatsoever. And what I mean by that is imagine if you send someone an email, hey, hire me, son, or I'm gonna send the mob over to you guys, right? So you send an email, hire me, right? And then they say, you know what? You wear purple. We don't like guys who wear purple. All right, F you then, right? So at that point, I put in my lead score. I say, all right, these are the people that I'm not going to follow up with at all because they responded in a bad way, right? So that's obvious. But then all of a sudden I say, hey, hire me. And the person comes back and says, we'll keep your information, right? We'll keep your information. Thanks. We'll take a look at it. We'll keep your information. Well, at that moment, I'm going to simply just check mark that response inside the lead score. And I know I'm going to follow up with them, let's say 3-4 months from now, right? So that's what you're doing in terms of your follow up and lead score. All right. So Glenn said, it's like sex. If the answer is no, tell me up front, because if you don't, I'm going to keep trying. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's literally, I keep telling everybody, when you're contacting people, when you're contacting events, you need to get an answer from people. Like, you need either a yes or a no. You can't just have a no response. That is one of the reasons why you have to know when to follow up, how often to follow up, and that sort of stuff, because simply because when you're contacting events and let's say you don't know, let's say they don't respond, you're just going to keep following up most of the time. You're like, you know what? This event has 300 plus people. They hired a speaker in the past. You're just going to keep following up. It's better for them to say, no, we're not interested. That way, you know not to follow up anymore. That way, you know not to waste your time. I can't stress that part enough. The whole purpose of a lead score is to get your time back. It's literally, imagine there's a room of 100 people. And in that room, there are 10 people who can buy what it is you're selling. Only 10 people. You don't know yet, but only 10 people, right? So you simply say, let's say the thing you're selling is a Ferrari, right? You're selling a Ferrari. So it's expensive as all hell. There's only a few people in the room who can buy it. And so you're thinking, all right, who can buy this Ferrari? There's no possible way you can just look at people and just know, right? So imagine you create a lead score. The lead score is going to simply help you decide which person to actually talk to. So, or as you're talking to people, you're going to sit there and check mark that lead score inside of your brain. You're going to be like, oh, what do you do for a living? Oh, I work at Starbucks. Okay. Negative lead score. All right, cool. Nice to meet you. What do you do for a living? Oh, I own Microsoft. Okay. Positive lead score. All right, cool. So tell me more, right? So that's literally what you're doing. On the other hand, if nobody's responding to you, just won't know who to actually follow up with and how often to follow up. So it's really, really important that you do that. And then make sure you're filtering through. Let's see, what else? All right. Oh, the best lead scores aren't intangible. The best lead scores are tangible. Okay. What I mean by that is it's literally like physical. It's literal. So there is no guess. There's no guessing game at this point. It's not, yeah, I feel like this event is going to hire me. There is no guessing game with the lead score. It's either it is or it isn't. It's do or do not, right? So for example, if I say this event has 500 plus people, like 500 or more people, that is tangible. I can actually say, anyone can literally say, yeah, that's a big ass event. It has 500 plus people, right? So it's a tangible thing. So that's what you need to do with your lead score. Or for example, another lead score is they contacted 6 months in advance. So if they contact you 6 months in advance, 6 or 7 months in advance or more, then that's a really, really good sign. It's a really good lead score simply because they place high value on your schedule. So if they were to contact you a month in advance and say, hey, we've got an event, it's January, we got an event February 23rd. Can you come and do our event? Well, it's actually a negative lead score because they didn't place value on my schedule. They simply said, all right, this guy, there's no way he's busy. I mean, it's only a month from now. He's not busy, right? So it's a negative lead score, which also indicates I cannot charge a high price. It's going to be hard for me to charge a high price because they see my value is way down here. On the other hand, if they contact me 8 months in advance, my value is way up here. And so that's essentially, you got to understand that your lead score is a tangible thing. Like it's something that anyone, you can give it to a freaking 10-year-old kid, and a 10-year-old kid could say, all right, so did these people contact me 6 months in advance? All right, let's see when the email was. Let's see when the date of their event is. All right, yeah, that's more than 6 months. Check mark, right? So your lead score has to be tangible. And also, this is what I was talking about with Talay when Talay was here, a Speak Pro member. I also mentioned your lead score needs to include responses, like what they actually say to you in an email. So you can have those in quotes or whatever, or any type of, but put it inside your lead score however you want. I put it in quotes, but however you want. So for example, you're simply just paying attention to how the actual conversation went in terms of what it is they're actually saying to you. Like, if someone says, what do you charge? That could be a lead score that usually you turn them into an incoming part of your pipeline. But that's a good thing. That's a positive lead score. If they say, we'll keep your information, that's also a positive. But once again, it's not as positive as what do you charge? If they say, if they're offended, if they're like, take me off your list, then obviously that's a negative lead score. But what you're doing is you're simply paying attention to the actual responses, and responses are actually tangible as well. So you read an email and they say, what do you charge? You check mark that in your lead score. Okay, bam, they asked me, what do I charge? Cool. And now you respond. So that's literally what you're doing every single time. I know a lot of speakers, even Speak Pro members, aren't using your lead scores. You guys need to start doing it. Like, you have to start doing it, because what's going to happen is you're going to get boggled down in the amount of responses that you're getting. And you will have to filter out the people that you need to respond to fast, the people you need to respond to slow, and the people you just don't need to respond to at all. And then once again, in terms of how you respond with certain people, if they say, what do you charge? It's going to be a very, very customized response. If they say, we'll keep your information, then that can be a template type of response. It can be, okay, thank you. Here's the link to the website with the videos. Bam. A simple template type response. And also with people who don't have those types of responses as well. So you're sitting there thinking, if they do this, I do that. They do this, I do that. They say this, I say that. So that's literally what you're doing with your lead score. What you're doing is to figure out your lead score. If you guys are Speak Pro Academy members, just go into Event Finder. The lead score is already there for you. If you don't have the lead score, you got to figure this stuff out yourself. So the way you figure it out yourself is you're simply looking at each and every single conversation you have with an event that hires you, by the way. Events that hire you and then events that don't. More importantly, the events that hire you, what you're doing is you're going through the email conversation and you're looking to see, how did that email conversation go? What are the qualities about this conversation, about this event that literally did it for me, right? That's what you're literally doing to get your lead score. I can't stress this enough. The lead score. I literally can't stress it enough how important this thing is. You truly, truly have to figure out who to talk to and who to ignore, which events to follow up with, which events to follow up with often, which events to follow up with once, which events to follow up with Absolutely never, right? You have to use your lead score to do this. And so in terms of figuring out the lead score, you simply look at the previous events. You look to see, well, what exactly are the qualities of this event? Is it an annual event? Is it an employee event? Is it a conference? What's the qualities? Did I talk to a sales manager? Like, what's the title of the person I talked to? So you're figuring out all these qualities, and then what you're doing is, in the beginning, it's like trial and error. In the beginning, you're saying, okay, the person who hired me is a sales manager, so that's going to be a positive lead score. Then all of a sudden you talk to another event, they hire you, and this person is just a regular employee, the HR department, right? And so now you're like, okay, well, this one's sales manager, this HR department, okay, that's a little confusing. Then you get hired by another event, and then the person in that event, they're the marketing manager. And now you're like, okay, wait, so sales manager, marketing manager, HR. And so you realize there is no correlation between actual titles. So at that point, you get rid of your lead score. So you're constantly updating your lead score to make sure that it's really, really well defined for you specifically. And so that's basically what it is you're doing. You're also looking at, like, how did you find this event? So you're looking to see, did you type in a Google award banquet? Did you type in marketing conference? Did you type in meeting profs? What did you type into Google to find this event? That's one of the things that all Speak Pro members know this. When you're customizing your CRM, you put inside there the search term as well. So when you actually find an event, whatever search term you use to find that event, put that in there. Because remember, when you get hired, you're going to go back to all these events that hired you, and you're looking for the qualities of the events that hired you. You're looking to see, did I type in award banquet into Google that, in terms of most events that hired me? Did they have, is it always an annual employee event? You're looking at the qualities of the event. At this point, you're also looking at the numbers inside of your tools. So you're looking at your CRM numbers, your Yesware numbers, or whatever other software like Yesware that you're using. You're looking at all those numbers to figure out the qualities in terms of how fast did they respond, like little things like that. Did they read your email and they didn't respond for like 2 months, or did they read your email and they responded immediately? How fast they respond is a huge indicator in terms of how much interest they have in you. It's just like with dating, right? Dating, that's actually a huge indicator, by the way. If you text someone and then they respond back to you fast, it's a huge indicator that they like you. If you text them and it takes them a day to respond back to you, you do not ever want to talk to them. I'm not saying I'm like a dating coach or anything, but I'm saying that's literally what you want to do, especially in dating as well. Like, literally think of it like that. However long they take to respond to you, if they take a long time to respond back, then you just don't respond. I mean, literally, I kid you not, if I text someone and they do not text me for like a day, I don't text them ever again. Literally, that's what happens. The same goes with events. It's like, well, I mean, if they don't respond in a day, of course I'll follow up. But what I'm doing is I'm saying this is an event. Because they did this, I will never talk to them again. Same with the phone call. Remember when I said the phone call, the people who weren't sitting down at their computers, eventually I got to a point where it was such a bad negative lead score. I literally said, if they're not sitting down, if they're like walking around just freaking doing whatever, if they're not sitting down at a computer or sitting down writing notes, it's such a negative lead score, I will never follow up with them, ever. Like, ever. They won't be able to schedule a call with me ever again, too. Like, they will literally have to buy, then we will talk. Like, that's literally how negative that lead score is. And so that's what you want to do. You want to sit there, see how fast did they respond, get all these qualities. Did they forward your email? So you're looking at those things inside of your CRM, inside of Yesware. Did they forward your email to anybody? And those are the qualities you're simply looking at, all right? You're always redefining that lead score as time goes on. So as time goes on, you keep redefining it. You keep saying, all right, I noticed that this is a thing that's working. This is a thing that doesn't work. You keep refining it. For all I know, 6 months from now, something's going to change, and all of a sudden, maybe we'll be closing people who are sitting there walking around in a grocery store, and I'll say, you know what? That is no longer a negative lead score. That is the positive lead score, right? I don't see that happening, but just imagine it did. And so that's what you're doing with your lead score, to where whenever you create the qualities of that lead score, you're always redefining it. You're always adding, taking away in terms of your lead score. The goal of everything you're doing to get hired is to simply say, here are the events that I need to talk to. Here are the events I need to ignore. Perfect example are the conferences. When I'm talking with conferences, I will send 1, maybe 2 emails and I'm done. I will never contact them again. Well, maybe a year, 2 years from now if I forget or something. But it's one of those things where I just know conferences don't pay speakers. Like, I just know it because their mindset is very different. And when they do, they for sure as hell will not pay an unknown $20,000 to come and do a presentation for them. They just won't. And so maybe they'll pay someone $1,000, $2,000. To me, that doesn't count, by the way. So that's why I keep saying that they don't really pay. But what I'm doing is, like, it's such a negative lead score that I contact them once and that's it. On top of that, sometimes I won't even send the first email where it says, hey, who hires the speakers? I will literally send more of a template based response saying, hey, I saw your XYZ conference. I'd love to speak, blah, blah, blah. Here's the video link, blah, blah, blah. Thank you. And then bam, that's it. That's literally it. And so that's what you're doing. Your lead score tells you who to follow up with, who to talk to, who not to talk to, how often to follow up. Your lead score is everything. All right. So any questions about anything before we are done for today? So let's see. So no questions. All right. So I guess we are good. I'm going to end this on Instagram real quick. All right. So we are done on Instagram. All right. Any other final questions before we are done for today? Let's see. Tomorrow, I'll look to see what we're talking about tomorrow. But remember, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific time, we're doing these live sessions. If you guys have any questions, make sure you ask. Make sure you guys are keeping those numbers up. Make sure you guys are always contacting events, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. You need to get into the state of mind and just train yourself to always be in that mode of when you feel the I don't feel like it feeling, you wake up or whatever, you're sitting down at a computer or something, you're like, I don't feel like sending out emails. As soon as you feel that, you immediately do it. Immediately do it. You have to train your brain to get to that point, because otherwise what's going to happen is you'll end up like all the other speakers who keep doing the same thing. I don't feel like it. They don't do it. They don't get hired, right? And so you have to train your brain to where it's like, I don't feel like it. That's why I'm going to do it. And then bam, before you know it, you end up getting hired consistently because you just build that muscle. You got to think of it in terms of muscle. So whenever something happens, you're sitting there thinking, I'm going to contact events, but I don't feel like it. If you don't do that, your muscle's gonna, atrophy, right? So you're gonna lose muscle. Like you're getting old because you're like, I don't feel like it, right? You're getting old, and so you're gonna lose muscle. Whereas if you keep saying, I don't feel like it, and then you do it anyways, it's like lifting weights. You're building that muscle. So you got to build that muscle whenever you don't feel like it. For those of you guys, like I said, for those of you Speak Pro members with the lead score, just go inside the program, get the lead score, poof, you guys got it. For those of you guys who aren't members, you got to create your own lead score, and creating your own lead score really just comes down to thinking, what are the qualities of an event that's more likely to hire you? And then based on those qualities, you're sitting there, you're filtering out events by saying, here are the events I'm going to follow up with pretty often. Here's the events I'm going to follow up with maybe once or twice. Here's the events I'm going to follow up with never, right? So that's what you're doing. See, Amy said, how important is it to keep Instagram up to date if you're marketing yourself as a speaker? I actually think it's really important to keep Instagram up to date, or somewhat up to date. Like, it doesn't have to be daily or anything like that, but just keep it up to date enough. It's not as important as when you're building a personal brand. So if you're building a personal brand, selling online programs and everything, it has to be updated because people are going to see everything. They're going to see your content everywhere. On the other hand, in order to get hired as a speaker, all you have to do, literally 2 things, have a great website and reach out to events. When you reach out to events, you're sending them to your website. So it's not like they're going to sit there and do a Google search and all that, and they're going to like say, let me check this person. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, they don't do that. They don't have time for that. And so, but on the other hand, it's just one of those things where you can just keep it updated, but you don't have to keep it updated on a daily basis if you just want to get paid gigs. If you're trying to build the online program, yes, it's good to keep it updated pretty often, because think about it. It's like when you go to someone's Instagram, or someone contacts you for their business. They're like, hey, I'm an SEO expert, whatever. You go to their Instagram and you see that their last post was in 2014. Inside of your mind, you're thinking to yourself, is this person still in business? Like, that's literally what you're thinking about. I've done that several times where I would go to someone's Instagram account and I don't remember maybe what it was for, maybe some video thing or something, or a couple photographers or something. I go to their Instagram account or just any of their accounts, Facebook or whatever, usually Facebook or Instagram. I never check anything else. So I usually go to one of those. I would see the last post was 2015 and I'm thinking they must be out of business. And because of that, I wouldn't contact them. And so the same goes with the speaker. On the other hand, if your last post was, January 7th? So if your last post was December 30th, there's no big deal about that. It's like, all right, cool, December 30th, no big deal about that. So yeah, I would keep it updated, but remember, you have to stay focused. And I can't stress the importance of focus. When most people try to get hired, or when most people are building their business in general, they're doing too many things. And by doing too many things, you get nothing done. So when I say keep your Instagram and social media updated, what I mean by that is you post on there. It takes you like 2 minutes to post and then you're done and then you go move on and you do it like 2 minutes and that's it, right? So you're not sitting there on Instagram forever just like posting, all right, let me see if I can do this. Let me make sure it's a perfect picture. In fact, speaking of that, hopefully you guys aren't trying to edit your face and all that stuff, trying to make the perfect picture, trying to do all those filters. None of that stuff. Literally, you're just sitting there, just taking a picture, bam, update it, post testimonials if you want. That's it. You just got to understand that when people hire a speaker, they do not have time to do what you think they're going to do. I don't know why speakers think they're going to check out their podcast or read their book or do all this research on them. They don't have time for that. They will not read your book. They don't have time to check out your podcast episodes, to watch your videos. They don't have time for that. They will glance at your website. They will look at your website, won't even look at everything on your website. Because once again, they don't have time for that. They won't even look at everything. They'll just look and say, all right, this speaker, he looks like he's worth so-and-so. They'll gather a couple speakers. They'll say, all right, these are the top 3 speakers we're considering. At that point, they'll look more into it. They'll say, all right, this guy, he wears purple, done deal. Let's get him, right? So that's what they do. And so that's why, it's a long answer to that question, but basically, yeah, keep it updated. All right. Any other final questions before we are done for today? Let's see. So we got those. All right. Yeah. So just keep that updated. Make sure you're always staying focused in terms of the most important things. The most important thing, like I said, I think it was a couple days ago or like last week or something. I basically said everything you do, other than actually talking to people who can hire you, is wasting your time. Finding emails, waste of time. Posting content, waste of time. Opening up your CRM, waste of time. Everything is a waste of time other than you talking to somebody. Of course, you have to do some of these things. Like you have to find an email address before you can contact somebody. But if you could press a magic button and it just finds an email address for you, that would be ideal. And actually, it's almost close to it with the base CRM. That's almost what they do, to be honest. The reach thing, it's actually pretty freaking cool. But still, if you could just press a button, if you could have, let's say, a list of 100 leads, you're like, poof, find me the email addresses, and poof, it finds it in 2 seconds, then that would be ideal. So you got to think in terms of any second you spend not contacting somebody, that means you are literally wasting your time and it will take you a long time to get booked on stages. All right. So yeah, that's what I mean, Alex. Like finding emails, it's a waste of time. Like you just want to think in terms of literal. You want to think in terms of, if I did this task all day, every day, what would happen? I think that's probably one of the most important questions I've ever asked myself. It's like, if I did this task all day, every day, what would happen? So let's say like building a brand, right? Let's say I said, all right, if I were to sit down and I were to write notes on the content that I'm going to create, right? So I'm going to create a Facebook Live. I'm sitting down creating bullet points. If I were to do that all day, every day, just write bullet points for notes and Facebook Live ideas, what would actually happen? What would happen is I'd have a ton of freaking bullet points. I'd have a ton of Facebook Live notes for all these episodes of Facebook Lives that I want to do. That's all that would happen. Literally. Nobody would see the Facebook Live. Nobody would buy anything. That's all that would happen because I spent all day, every day, 24/7 doing this. On the other hand, if I said, okay, if I spent all day, every day sending out emails, telling people to buy my stuff, what would happen? What would happen is eventually someone's going to buy my stuff. This is why the company, the digital marketer company, they were the first ones that I studied with the personal brand. I looked at them, I was like, dang, these guys, like, they're not giving you too much content. Like, if you look at the emails, if you join their list and you look at the emails, out of the, I think it was 31 emails I looked at the emails for the entire month. It was 31 emails. It was like 26, 27 of them were all promotion, zero content. It wasn't like, hey, watch this video on how to do this. Watch this video on how to do this. We're doing Facebook. None of that. It was like, all right, we got a new product for you. This product is $199. Literally every single email, 26, 27 out of the 31 was strictly promotion. And so they understood if we did this all day, every day, what's going to happen? People are going to buy. On the other hand, if they're like, if we created content all day, every day, what would happen? We would have content. That's it. So the same goes with like finding emails and all that with events. You got to think if all I did all day, every day was find emails, what would happen? All that you would have are a boatload of emails. That's all that would happen. If you said, on the other hand, if all I did all day, every day was contact events, like literally talk to them, what would happen? Well, it's inevitable that someone's going to hire you. Obviously, the two go hand in hand. You have to find it in order to contact. But if you didn't have to find it, think about that. And what I mean by that is if you essentially just gave it to a VA, you say, hey, VA, find the email addresses. Because my most important activity is talking to them. It is not finding emails. You go do that. You find the emails to these events. I have to talk to them. So that's how you truly stay productive. That's how you take your business to a whole new level. You have to truly think about that all the time. If I were to do this all day, every day for an entire year, what would happen? That's how you want to think. If I do this all day, every day for an entire year, what would happen? So that's how you think. That's how you get really, really productive. All right. All right. So I think we are good to go for today. So tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Remember, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific time. If you guys have any questions about getting on stages or anything like that, make sure you ask. I will see you guys tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Take care, everybody.